I love this movie. Absolutely love it. Evil Dead, one of the most important movies in horror history. It's been a joy to make this video. So lock your cabin doors, hide your pencils and come join us as I give you 10 groovy facts that you may not know about the Evil Dead. And if you like this video, subscribe and comment as well. It's been nice chatting to some of you. You're a bloody nice bunch.
Number 1 from comedy to horror.
The amazing director of Evil Dead, Sam Raimi, who would later go on to direct Drag Me to Hell, the Tobey Maguire starring Spider-Man trilogy, and Doctor Strange 2, has been friends with the star of the Evil Dead franchise, Bruce Campbell, for over 40 years. The pair would make Super 8mm films together and show them in high school. They would mostly shoot comedies, and it's fair to say Raimi's horror and crime films after the first Evil Dead would contain comedic aspects, but for his debut feature, that comedy aspect would be left behind. Campbell and Raimi would often go to the drive-in movie theatres, which would show tons of horror movies, usually of the cheap and B-movie kind. The drive-in cinema goers would honk their horns and boo when the film turned a bit crappy. This market research, if you will, and I'm sure you will, gave Raimi and Campbell some handy tips on what to not do in a horror film. It was decided they would make a horror film as it's easier to get away with using no-name actors, whereas comedy movies would probably have the audience expecting to see Steve Martin or John Belushi on the screen. It's common practice for independent movie makers to showcase their potential by making short movies, and Sam Raimi knew he needed to make a promo. Though he could attract investors, Raimi needed a budget of around $375,000, so he made the short film Within the Woods, which brings me to
Number 2 Within the Woods.
Within the Woods packs a lot into its short running time, about 4 college students having a weekend away in the woods. After disturbing an Indian burial ground, they unleash an unholy demon which sets about dismembering everybody and possessing people, including Bruce Campbell himself. Within the Woods was shot quickly to showcase the potential for the Evil Dead movie, and it was also a great learning curve as many elements will be included in the eventual movie and often improved upon, such as the hairy porch swing that implies something is not quite right is given more suspenseful time in the movie. Shots like the character of Scott grabbing one of the ladies as the Deadite force zooms in on her were kept in the movie, adding some much needed scares. The part where Shelley gets her wrist slashed and begins to chew through her hand was all down to an improvised scene on Within the Woods, where a possessed Bruce Campbell does the same. But originally Bruce was supposed to just rip it off in one go, but the latex was too hardened and Bruce Campbell struggled, so he tore through it with his teeth. The crew were horrified, and Sam Raimi loved it so much this resulted in the same stomach churning scene being added to the movie. It starred Bruce Campbell as Ash, although he was no hero here, and it also starred Raimi regular Scott Spiegel, who would later go on to co-write the amazing Evil Dead 2. It also starred Mary Valente, who was at that time a high school student, and Helen Sandwise, who would play the role of Cheryl in the Evil Dead film. Raimi, Campbell and producer Robert Tabbitt convinced the local cinemas to show it alongside the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where it was adored by the public.
Let's do the time warp, yeah. With a jump to the left and a jump to the swallow your soul.
Sadly, there still wasn't enough interest to generate investors, so Raimi and Campbell did a bit of a hustle and got hold of some cheap suits and briefcases to look like genuine businessmen with genuine investable property, lightly sprinkled no doubt with some bullshit. This eventually raised enough money to fund Evil Dead, and it has to be said some of Bruce Campbell's relatives shown faith and even remortgaged their house to invest. Thankfully, it paid off. Within the Woods had never been made available legally, with only grainy bootleg copies, the only way to see this gory, bloody stepping stone to the world of Evil Dead. In 2002, Anchor Bay released a limited edition Book of the Dead Blu-ray, and reports were it was going to include Within the Woods, but it was pulled at the last minute for legal reasons that are unknown. It had a great restoration job too by all accounts. Rumours have it that Sam Raimi has reservations about it and got cold feet at the last minute. He's not sure if he wants people to see it, and other rumours suggest it is because Mary Valente, who also starred in it, does not want to allow footage of her to be used. Maybe she doesn't want the attention, or it could be a financial issue, who knows. So for now Within the Woods is not going to be released, sadly.
Number 3 The Location.
Evil Dead was shot in Morristown, Tennessee, once home to the hero Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett, king of the old frontier. Sam Raimi did not have a scout locator either, as it was too costly. So the Evil Dead crew went around Morristown looking for a suitable place to conjure up some deadites. They found an abandoned cabin in the wood. It was ideal. It already looked creepy without any touching up. A bit like myself, if I may say so. There were 13 crew working on the movie, and they had to stay in the cabin as it was too far out of the way to travel to and from. Steve Frankel was an experienced carpenter, so he altered the cabin to make it more accessible for certain shots. And you may find this incredible to believe, but the cabin did not even have a basement, even though it provides some of the scariest scenes in the movie, so one had to be dug up. The cabin in the woods was incredibly creepy at night. It actually freaked some of the cast and crew out. One night while shooting a scene in the woods near a bridge, the crew got lost on their way back to the cabin and began to freak out. Had the deadites disorientated the crew? No, of course not. They bloody got lost, but it was in a Bible Belt section, and there were also stories of cults going to the woods and getting up to no good, possibly doing evil things, and groups would often come by drinking moonshine and congregate near the cabin over the weekend, no doubt creating an uneasy situation. Because of the woodland, sadly only parts of the cabin remain there today, such as the fireplace, as it was burnt down not long after the release of Evil Dead. It was widely believed to be drunk partying kids who burnt down the cabin, or even Sam Raimi himself who said he did it. I suspect to give the true owners of the cabin some slack. Here's what really happened. The land on which the cabin lay was built on an Indian burial ground. Just kidding. It was actually owned by a guy called T.L. Shockley, who used it as a hunting cabin. When the movie came out, it attracted a lot of attention, and people would go to visit the cabin, trespassing on his land. Kids would drink in the cabin and wander around the woods. T.L. Shockley was understandably upset about this. He was worried he would accidentally shoot someone during hunting season and would often have to physically remove trespassers. It became a bit too much, so he decided one night to burn the cabin down in the hope it would deter would-be deadite seekers. When the police investigated, it was written off as kids pissing about and left at that. But now you know the true story.
Number 4. Stephen King and Irvin Shapiro.
What's that? Stephen King was involved with Evil Dead? Well, yeah, kind of. When the film was in the can, Raimi and the gang tried to find a studio to take it on and release it, but they'd had more luck trying to convince David Attenborough to have a fight with a kangaroo. It was a no-go. The studios were afraid to take it on due to the gore and violence and relentless horror. How dare they make a horror film that is actually horrific? Irvin Shapiro was an American film producer who created the Cannes Film Festival. He agreed to show Evil Dead at the festival, at which Stephen King was attending. Evil Dead delighted many, especially King, who, and I quote, said, "the most ferociously original horror film of the year." He wrote a magazine review that praised the living shit out of the movie. Studios were now clamouring to obtain it. Horror fans were going crazy with anticipation for the yet-to-be-released movie that now had a buzz about it. Because of Shapiro's generosity, Raimi and Campbell are forever thankful to him. He sadly passed away in 1989. Yet even as far as the 2013 Evil Dead movie, they still state they're forever indebted to him. If it wasn't for him and Stephen King, who knows where this movie would have ended up.
Number 5. Title change.
Evil Dead. It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Yet, at one point in time, it was originally called Book of the Dead. It makes sense, for it is after all the iconic evil demonic book, the Necronomicon, that is the catalyst for all the deranged situations in the movie. Raimi didn't want to use the same title as his short film, Within the Wood, as it wasn't quite punchy enough, and Raimi was a huge fan of the author H.P. Lovecraft, who often wrote about a fictional Book of the Dead, so was super keen on the title. It was producer and supporter Irvin Shapiro who told Raimi the title will put kids off seeing the movie because it had a literature reference. Kids don't read books, damn it, they want booze and to just watch movies about evil possessed people ripping faces off. So it was Shapiro who suggested the Evil Dead title, and what a title it is, I bloody love it. Although when it had its world premiere at the Redford Theatre in Michigan, it was called Book of the Dead. And for some strange reason, the film was released as Book of the Dead on VHS in Greece in 1981. This was not authorised by production company Renaissance Pictures.
Number 6. Tom Sullivan Special Effects.
Tom Sullivan is a special effects artist who's worked on such films as the Evil Dead franchise, The Fly 2, and Jason Goes to Hell, where the Necronomicon also makes an appearance. He met Sam Raimi through his girlfriend who went to the same university as him. He quickly developed a lasting friendship with Raimi, producer Robert Tabbert and Bruce Campbell. He worked on the short film Within the Woods, creating the special effects. It was inevitable that Sam Raimi would ask Tom Sullivan to join us when he was preparing the feature-length Evil Dead. Tom Sullivan was relatively inexperienced and was learning as he went along, pretty much like the old cast and crew of the Evil Dead. Because of budget issues and time, as Sam Raimi was so secretive in regards to his script, that Tom Sullivan would only find out 3 weeks prior to shooting what he had to prepare for. He would make facial castings of the actors, and we all love a good facial. Using just Vaseline and plaster of Paris, he applied makeup to cast faces, but this resulted in some uncomfortable eating moment as the plaster of Paris would eat up. It actually ripped off actress Betsy Baker, and she was being baked by the sound of it, her eyelashes, when the plaster was taken off. Ouch! The other cast members would also suffer for their art, with them being unable to move their limbs, and one actor having some unwanted hair removal. Tom Sullivan had to stay in the cabin for the whole shoot and slept in a room with 13 guys.
Slept in a room with 13 guys? I once heard my mother say she'd done that when she was younger. I wonder if she was a special effects artist.
Eventually though, he slept in the laundry room, as he only had 2 or 3 hours sleep most nights, yet the other guy's snoring was so loud that some days he worked without having slept at all. Tom created all the props, such as the Kandarian dagger, and of course the Book of the Dead, which he made whilst having breakfast in the morning. For the blood effects, corn syrup was used, and they went through so much of it that the whole area sold out of corn syrup within a couple of weeks. Hell, that's a lot of corn syrup. The blood was incredibly hard to get off and made everything hard and sticky.
Not even going to go there.
Originally, the eye-wincing pencil in the ankle scene, which looks horrible and still goes through me to this day, was in part a happy accident. No, not a happy accident like you have after watching Basic Instinct, you scoundrels. A fake hollowed out leg filled with chicken and fake blood was used, and it was supposed to be a quick stab in and a stab out. But in the one and only take, the pencil got lodged into the leg, so rather than set it all up again and reshoot the scene, Sam Raimi shouted, "Twist the pencil! Make it look like it's hurting!"
Alright Sam Raimi, calm down mate.
The scene came out more horrifying because of it. Raimi originally wanted the end scene with Linda to be a body of balloons dressed up gorily to slowly deflate. Tom told him it would look silly, so convinced him to let him create the stop motion decomposing moment, reminiscent of Ray Harryhausen effects, and have it as a finale. It's an eerie dated, even back then, special effect, yet it's fantastic and glorious looking. If it weren't for this genius of special effects wizard Tom Sullivan, this would not have even been in the movie.
Number 7 Creepy Stories and Tall Tales.
Over the years there have been many stories about the making of Evil Dead and the cabin itself, in what seems to be a horror story all of its own. There was a story about the final shot of the movie, where we see the Evil Dead force chase after Ash in what appears to be his final moments. The camera zooms up to the big chin himself, and the soul sucker hits him. The film ends. Well, to achieve this shot, Sam Raimi told poor old Bruce Campbell that he was going to ride a motorbike with the camera attached, and it would hit Campbell. There was no way around it. The motorbike hit Bruce almighty, and he broke his jaw, but took one for the team. But wait, all those years that story was perpetuated by Raimi and Campbell, and people believed it. Bruce Campbell finally admitted after being waterboarded by the government. Well, maybe that part's not true, but he did admit it was all made up. Nobody was hurt, a motorbike was never used, it was just a story to generate interest and amuse Campbell and Raimi. There is also a creepy story about the cabin in Tennessee. The film crew were told by the Tennessee Council that the cabin had a dark history. Story goes the cabin was built around 1891 by a man named Emmett Talbot to house his pregnant wife and his mother-in-law. Whilst out front one night, a bolt of lightning struck Emmett and killed him off. He was buried in front of the cabin. Poor old Emmett never got to see his daughter Clara grow up, and some years later, whilst in bed, there was a loud thunderclap. She got up frightened and ran to her grandmother's room, only to find a rotting corpse. She screamed and ran to her mother's room, where she also found her mum, well and truly dead. Thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening. Clara ran for her life through the woods, which echoed with the sounds of the unnatural. She made it to a farmhouse and told the occupants what had happened as they took her in. Almost 100 years later, whilst the crew were shooting Evil Dead, a man called Gus stopped by and asked if they seen Clara, who he said was old and senile and would likely turn up at the cabin, but the cast and crew had not seen her. The man departed. For the next couple of weeks the cast and crew would hear voices in the woods and feel eyes staring at them. Bloody creepy, isn't it? Well, no, because it was also revealed that story was made up too, as a humorous dig. For years the story went around and many fell for it, but it was revealed to be a fake story. A fake shemp of a story.
Number 8. The Grueling Shoot.
The movie was an arduous shoot, and many mishaps were to be had. It was a testing time for the old cast and crew. The cast and crew all slept in the cabin, as it had to be a quick shoot and there was no local Hilton hotel nearby, this son of a gun. This resulted in many members having to deal with each other snoring, as well as farting. The plumbing was pretty much non-existent, so waiting to take your turn to have a shit no doubt took its toll. Bruce Campbell would often have to shower, wearing his concert blood-stained clothing, as there simply wasn't enough time or water to do it separately. When the crew first arrived, they held their noses as they found the cabin floor was covered with 4 inches of cow manure, so the crew, including Bruce Campbell himself, had to literally shovel shit.
Does a cow shit in the woods? Nope, it seems it shits in the cabin.
Tom Sullivan would have to wake up the cast members, who were going to have prosthetic makeup applied a few hours before everybody else so he could get them ready for shooting. With the lack of sleep, this soon took its toll, and tempers were swinging like a left testicle in the heat. The shoot overran by 4 weeks, which meant some of the crew and cast had to leave as they had lives and work to get back to. So Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Rob Tabbert had to stay behind to shoot the rest of the movie. They changed the script to accommodate the lack of actors, and even stood in and played some of the characters where they would have been filmed from the back or had makeup on, fake shemps as they were called. During one day of shooting, a large bull came charging at Sam Raimi, and there was nothing anybody could do to stop it, but luckily it veered off and ran away. I don't know about Evil Dead, it's Evil Bull. During one scene, as Bruce Campbell was running through the woods, he fell and sprained his ankle. Maybe the demonic tree tripped him up. He had to carry on shooting. You'd think he would have got some sympathy from his longtime friend Sam Raimi and Rob Tabbert, but nope. They kept prodding his ankle with sticks, making him howl with pain, which made them howl with laughter. On the first day of shooting near the bridge, the camera crew got lost in the woods, and it took them ages to find their way to the cabin. In the film, the deadite in the cellar grabs Ash by the face, but during shooting, the puppeteer under the false cellar floor could not see Ash and blindly grabbed at him like a crazy blindfolded drunk and cut his face. The blood trickling down the side of Bruce Campbell's head in that scene is actually his real blood. It sounds like making this movie was a ferocious, grueling ordeal itself.
Number 9. The controversial UK releases.
After the Stephen King quote, this made the ears of UK distributor Palace Pictures prick up their ears, and they bought the UK distribution rights and heavily promoted it, and it became a huge hit in the UK, but it was soon on a rocky road to controversy. Palace Pictures actually released Evil Dead at the cinema and on VHS rental on the same day, which had never been done before or since until the recent streaming services started doing it left, right and centre. Cinema chains were outraged as they believed this would drastically affect their business. As usually, movies shown at the cinema would then have to wait 9 months till a home video release and then a further 12 months till its sell-through release to Joe Public. These were different times. The film was a huge success on VHS rental. It became the most successful video of 1983. Not bad for a low-budget horror movie with an inexperienced crew. The movie was given an X certificate with 49 seconds cut to the scene involving a pencil in the ankle.
Sometimes you just cannot find a pencil sharpener when you need one.
It soon became embroiled in the video nasty scandal in the 80s. Here in the UK, there was an ever-growing army of opposers who wanted all films that they deemed violent and gratuitous banned, for they believed they were corroding the fabric of society. There was a vociferous campaign led by Mary Whitehouse, an ex-school teacher, who decided we would all go out and murder after watching these apparently depraved movies. This had people concerned. The government began to back the campaign, and the media damned all horror fans to hell. The Video Recordings Act was passed, and these type of movies were effectively banned. Police would raid video shops and confiscate all the VHS tapes deemed nasty. Video shop owners were out of pocket after also being fined, and some were actually sent to jail. They now face the prospect of only being able to rent out Gentle Ben than Star Trek the movie, the way it was going. The Evil Dead was of course one of the video's seed. Palace Picture Video were actually taken to court several times and lost a few of the cases. Palace Pictures had had enough, as the law was not clear on what offences exactly were being committed. They compiled a defence case to prove the film, which had also been legally granted a certificate by the BBFC, was not obscene. Sam Raimi himself was also present at the court case. They won their case, and The Evil Dead could once more be released to VHS video. Although, to be on the safe side, the head of the British Board of Film Classification demanded more cuts, totaling close to 2 minutes. Interestingly enough, Palace Pictures sent out video sleeves to video shops, with a banner declaring not guilty. It was too late though, as wary video shop owners had got rid of their copies. This video sleeve became so obscure that it's worth hundreds of pounds nowadays. It wasn't until nearly 20 years after its release it was finally released uncut. Evil Dead is still banned in Singapore, the Ukraine and Finland.
Number 10. The Bollywood Evil Dead remake.
Now, you will often see discussions on the World Wide Web about the Evil Dead remake, made in 2013, starring Jane Levy and directed by Fede Alvarez. It was generally well received, and I think it's a good movie, but what you may not know is there was already an unofficial remake, and I don't mean just very similar, I mean pretty much like a Gus Van Sant shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. But I'll get back to that in a moment. First, let me get something off my chest.
Now, I personally never called the 2013 Evil Dead film a remake, as I think it's set in the same universe, but that's for another video.
Now, where were we? Ah yes, Swallow Your Soul! Oops, where did that come from? In 2008, a Bollywood movie called Back Kizara was released, and it's Evil Dead. I won't give plot details because they're exactly the same. Directed by Salam Raza, who also has the same initials as Sam Raimi, that's dedication for you. Whilst the film was a remake, there are some notable differences in the grueling horror, such as it has a musical number with a mud-smeared lady in panties dancing with a load of muscle-bound men, so there's a bit of something for everyone. The group of kids find a body in the cabin, but just decide to laugh it off, as you do. It includes the tree attack moment, the lady being possessed and locked in the cellar, and somebody getting stabbed in the ankle, although it's with a fork instead of a pencil. They probably laugh that off too, and eat dinner with the fork later on. I've not seen it, but I feel like I have to because I drink a lot, and this is a drink a lot movie.
Well, I hope you enjoyed those 10 groovy things about Evil Dead that you may not have known. Anyway, I'm going to hide these pencils because you never know who's going to become possessed next. I'll see you. Swallow your soul! See you in a bit.
Evil, evil, evil dead, coming after you. Evil, evil dead, gonna make you poo. We're right, I tell you, there's a dead-eyed woo-woo. Quick, hide the pencils, Cheryl is possessed. Watch what you're doing with that Kandarian dagger. I've got blood all over my vest. Evil Dead, join us now. Evil Dead, I'll swallow your soul like a beef burger from a cow. Evil Dead! Evil Dead!